Jake Morrison stared at the assignment paper in his hands and felt his stomach drop. The words seemed to mock him from the official letterhead of the human diplomatic corps. Personal guardian to Princess Zarathal of the Kethmori Empire. He had heard the stories. Every security officer in the fleet had heard the stories. 12 guards in 8 months. That was the princess's record. Some quit after a week. Others requested immediate transfers to combat zones, claiming they would rather face enemy fire than spend another day with her. The unlucky few who stayed longer often ended up in the medical bay with mysterious injuries or stress-related breakdowns. Consider this your last chance, Morrison. Captain Peters sat behind his desk, not bothering to look up from his reports. Your performance on the trade mission with the Zillions was unacceptable. This assignment will either fix your career or end it. Jake wanted to argue. The Zillion incident had not been his fault. How was he supposed to know that their greeting gesture looked exactly like a human insult? But arguing would only make things worse. He folded the paper and put it in his pocket. When do I start, sir? Now. The princess is waiting in docking bay 7. Try not to embarrass our entire species. The walk to docking bay 7 felt like a march to his execution. Other crew members he passed gave him sympathetic looks or quickly looked away. Word traveled fast on a ship, and everyone already knew about his new assignment. The docking bay hummed with activity as various alien species moved cargo and conducted business. Jake spotted the Kethmori delegation immediately. They were hard to miss. 7 feet tall, with blue-tinted skin that seemed to shimmer in the artificial light, they stood in a perfect formation around their princess. Princess Zarathal stood in the center of the group, like a statue carved from living crystal. Her skin was a deeper blue than the others, shifting between sapphire and azure as Jake watched. She wore elaborate robes that probably cost more than Jake's yearly salary, and her bearing screamed royalty from every angle. Jake straightened his uniform and approached the group. The Kethmori guards watched him with obvious disapproval. Of them, wearing more decorations than the others, stepped forward. You are the new guardian? The alien's voice carried the musical quality common to his species, but there was nothing pleasant about his tone. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, reporting for duty. I am Commander Thelvis. You will address the princess as your highness, and maintain proper protocol at all times. Do you understand? Sir. Commander Thelvis studied Jake for a long moment. Then turned to the princess. Your highness, your new guardian has arrived. Princess Zarathal turned slowly to face Jake. Her eyes were the color of deep ocean water, and they looked at him like he was something unpleasant she had found on the bottom of her shoe. When she spoke, her voice was clear and formal, with an accent that made every word sound important. Another primitive mammal sent to guard me. How delightful. She looked Jake up and down with obvious distaste. You appear adequately healthy? Though smaller than I had hoped. Tell me, creature, do you possess any useful skills beyond standing and breathing? Jake felt heat rise in his cheeks but kept his voice steady. I have military training and diplomatic security experience, Your Highness. Military training. She said the words like they tasted bad. How wonderfully crude. Suppose you know. How to point weapons at things and shout orders, among other skills. Yes. Princess Zarathal made a sound that might have been laughter, but held no humor. We shall see. Commander Thelvis, please inform this guardian of his duties. The commander produced a tablet and began reading from it. You will maintain a distance of exactly 3 steps behind Her Highness at all times. You will not speak. Unless spoken to, you will not make direct eye contact with Her Highness. You will taste all food and drink before it reaches Her Highness. You will arrange her quarters according to precise specifications. You will carry her ceremonial weapons. During formal occasions, Jake listened to the list with growing disbelief. Each requirement seemed designed to be more ridiculous than the last. When the commander finished, Jake looked at the cases containing the ceremonial weapons. They looked heavy enough to break his back. Any questions, Commander? Thelvis asked. 1. How exactly am I supposed to protect the princess if I have to stay 3 steps behind her and never look at her? The silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear the hum of the ship's engines. Princess Zarathel's skin shifted to a darker blue, and her eyes narrowed. Did this creature just question royal protocol? Her voice could have frozen water. Commander Thelva stepped closer to Jake. You will follow orders without question. Your primitive species clearly lacks understanding of proper behavior. Jake felt his temper flare, but forced it down. Getting angry would only prove their point. I understand protocol. I just want to do my job effectively. Your job, Princess, Zarathal said, her voice cutting through the air like a blade is. To obey, nothing more. If you find these requirements too challenging for your limited intellect, I am certain another guardian can be found. She turned away from him, clearly considering the conversation over. Jake stared at her back and realized that everyone had been wrong about Princess Zarathal. She was not difficult or demanding. She was testing him, just like every guard before. The question was whether he would break like the others or find a way to survive. I understand, Your Highness. Jake picked up the first case of ceremonial weapons and nearly staggered under its weight. Where would you like me to carry these? Princess Zarathal glanced back at him with what might have been surprise. To my quarters. Try not to drop them. They are worth more than your pathetic vessel. Jake hefted the second case and fell into step behind her, counting his paces. 1, 2, 3. The princess moved with fluid grace through the corridors of the ship, her robes flowing behind her like water. Other crew members stopped and stared as they passed. Pity. Others seemed to be taking bets on how long he would last. The princess's quarters were in the diplomatic section of the ship, a series of rooms designed to accommodate various alien species. As they entered, Jake saw that the space had been completely transformed. Rich fabrics covered the walls, strange glowing crystals provided soft light, and the air smelled of exotic spices. Place the weapons there. Princess Zarathal pointed to an ornate stand near the window, carefully. Jake set down the cases and tried not to show how much his arms were shaking. The princess watched him with those ocean-colored eyes, waiting for him to fail. Now, she said, settling into a chair that looked like it was made from carved bone, we shall see how long you last, Guardian. Your predecessors rarely made it through the first day without embarrassing themselves completely. Jake straightened his aching back and looked at her directly. Protocol be damned. Then I guess I will just have to be different. Time since he had met her, Princess Zarathal smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. 3 weeks had passed since Jake became Princess Zarathal's guardian. It survived longer than most, though some days he wondered if that was really a victory. The princess seemed to take pleasure in finding new ways to test his patience. Yesterday, she had demanded he rearrange her furniture 7 times because the energy flow was wrong. The day before, she had insisted he learn the proper way to fold her ceremonial scarves, which apparently required 17 different steps and a prayer to some Kethmori goddess. Jake's fingers still ached from that lesson, but something strange was happening. The more time Jake spent with the princess, the more he noticed things that did not match her reputation. Small things at first, like how she always asked about the crew members they passed in the hallways, remembering their names and families, or how she spent hours each day reading reports from different worlds, taking careful notes in multiple languages. Today was different. Today, there was a formal dinner with ambassadors from 5 different species. Jake had been dreading it all week. Formal dinners meant ceremonial armor, which weighed twice as much as the regular weapons. It also meant standing perfectly still for hours while important people talked. About things he did not understand, Jake struggled into the ceremonial armor with help from 2 maintenance crew members. The metal plates were covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly, and the whole thing felt like wearing a small building. When he was finally dressed, he could barely move. You look ridiculous, Princess Zarathal said when she saw him. She had changed into robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, shifting colors with every movement. Try not to fall over. During dinner, the sound would be terribly embarrassing. Jake managed a bow that nearly sent him toppling forward. I will do my best, Your Highness. The dining hall had been transformed for the occasion. Tables floated in the air, supported by invisible force fields. Strange music played from hidden speakers, a mixture of sounds that somehow worked together. Despite coming from different worlds, Jake took his position behind the princess's chair and tried to ignore the stares from the other guards. The dinner began with formal introductions. Jake listened as each ambassador spoke about their world and their species. The conversation was polite but tense. Everyone was trying to be diplomatic while protecting their own interests. Then Princess Zarathal began to speak. Jake forgot all about his aching shoulders. She switched between languages as easily as breathing. First, she addressed the Talarian ambassador in their native tongue, discussing trade routes and mineral rights. Then she turned to the Vox delegation and spoke in their clicking language about cultural exchange programs. With each group, she seemed to know exactly what they needed to hear. Jake watched in amazement as she guided the conversation away from potential conflicts. When the Talarians and Vox began to argue about mining rights in a disputed system, the princess smoothly redirected their attention to a joint research project that would benefit both species. When the human ambassador tried to push for exclusive trading agreements, she found a way to include everyone while making it seem like his idea. The woman who had spent 3 weeks making Jake's life miserable was revealing herself to be a master diplomat. She knew the history, culture, and politics of every species at the table. More than that, she understood how to make them work together. The real test came when Ambassador Chen from Earth brought up the Helios system incident. It was a sensitive topic. 3 months ago, human and Kethmori ships had nearly fired on each other over a misunderstanding about territorial boundaries. Both sides still blamed the other. Jake saw the tension immediately. The other ambassadors stopped eating and watched carefully. This could destroy the entire evening. Princess Zarathal did not even pause. She acknowledged the incident calmly, then began to explain how it had actually revealed important communication problems that affected everyone. She suggested a new protocol for ship-to-ship contact that would prevent similar problems in the future. Within minutes, she had turned a potential disaster into a collaborative solution. Jake was so focused on the princess's diplomatic performance that he almost missed the danger. The Vox ambassador's guard was moving wrong. Jake had been trained to read body language, and something about the alien's posture set off alarms in his head. The guard was positioning himself behind the human delegation, but his attention was fixed on Princess Zara. Jake caught a glimpse of metal in the guard's hand. Not a ceremonial weapon, something small and deadly. Training took over. Jake could not shout a warning without causing panic. He could not move quickly in the heavy armor, but he could think. He caught Princess Zarathal's sigh and gave her a look that he hoped she would understand. Then he pointed with his chin toward the Vox guard. The princess followed his gaze and her skin shifted to a darker blue. She had seen the threat too. What happened next showed Jake that Princess Zarathal was more than just a skilled diplomat. Without changing her tone or expression, she continued her conversation with the Tellurian ambassador while making a subtle hand gesture. Jake did not recognize the signal, but apparently the other Kethmori guards did. They began to move casually around the room, taking new positions. The princess then did something brilliant. She started telling a story about Vox cultural traditions, speaking in their clicking language. The story required the listeners to face different directions to show proper respect. As she spoke, she guided everyone at the table to turn away from the threat. Jake used the distraction to move closer to the Vox guard. His armor made stealth impossible, but it also made him look like a ceremonial decoration rather than a real threat. When the guard raised his weapon, Jake was ready. He grabbed the alien's arm and twisted, using a move he had learned in basic training. The weapon fell to the floor with a metallic clatter. The room erupted in chaos. Guards shouted and drew weapons. Ambassadors dove for cover. In the confusion, Jake saw 2 more Vox guards moving toward the exits. They had not been working alone. "Stop them," Princess Zarathal commanded in perfect Vox. "They carry information." Crystals, the other guards moved to block the exits. Within minutes, all 3 conspirators were captured. A search revealed that they had been recording the dinner conversation and planning to assassinate the princess to prevent the new cooperation agreements, as security teams led the prisoners away. Ambassador Chen, approached Jake and the princess. "How did you know?" he asked. Princess Zarathal smoothed her robes and sat back down as if nothing had happened. "Cultural knowledge, Ambassador." The guards were positioned for surveillance, not protection. Their stance was wrong for ceremonial. Duty. Jake stared at her in amazement. She had not only spotted the threat, but had maneuvered everyone to safety while maintaining the diplomatic conversation. He had helped, but she had been the one to take control of the situation. "Your guardian performed adequately," the princess said to Ambassador Chen. "For a primitive mammal," but when she looked at Jake, her expression was different. There was something new in those ocean-colored eyes. Not respect exactly, but acknowledgement. He had proven he could think under pressure and work with her instead of just following orders. Later that night, as Jake helped secure the princess's quarters, she spoke to him directly for the first time without giving an order. "Yourself well tonight, Jake Morrison." It was the first time she had used his name. "Thank you, Your Highness." She studied him for a moment.
Ow.
"Tell me about your homeworld. I am curious about the place that produces such unusual guards." Jake blinked in surprise. The Princess Zarathal, who had made his life miserable for 3 weeks, was asking him about Earth, like she actually cared about his answer. "What would you like to know?" "Everything," she said simply. "I have a feeling I have been underestimating your species." The weeks following the dinner attack changed everything between Jake and Princess Zarathal. She no longer demanded he walk 3 steps behind her. Instead, she asked him to walk beside her as they toured the ship. She stopped making him taste her food and started asking about human customs during their meals. Together, Jake learned that the princess was not cruel or difficult. She was lonely. For 26 years, she had been surrounded by people who either wanted something from her or feared her father's power. No one had ever treated her like a person instead of a political tool. "On my world," she told Jake one evening as they watched the stars through her window, "I have no friends. Only servants, guards, and nobles who smile while they plan how to use me." Jake understood loneliness. Growing up as a military kid, moving from base to base, he had learned how hard it was to make real connections. That sounds like a terrible way to live. It is the way things are for royal children. We are raised to serve our people, not to be happy. Her skin shifted to a sad blue color. "My father has been planning my marriage since I was a child. Each potential husband was chosen for political reasons, never for compatibility or affection." "What kind of marriages?" Jake asked, though he suspected he would not like the answer. "Alliances? Trade agreements? Peace treaties? I am a bargaining chip, nothing more." Princess Zarathal turned away from the window. 12 different marriage contracts have been proposed. I've refused them all. It explained her reputation. Jake realized she was not being difficult. She was fighting for the right to choose her own life. Their conversation was interrupted by a communication alert. Princess Zarathal activated the holographic display, and Jake saw the imposing figure of Emperor Velthak, her father. Even as a projection, the Kethmori ruler radiated power and authority. "Daughter," the emperor said, without greeting.
Yes, I have excellent news.
"Prince Vextar of the Zephyrian Confederacy has agreed to the marriage alliance." Jake watched Princess Zarathal's skin turn to the darkest blue he had ever seen. Her hands clenched into fists, but her voice remained steady. "Father, I thought we had discussed this matter." "I am not ready for marriage. You are 26 years old. You're more than ready. The ceremony will take place in 2 weeks. Prince Vextar is traveling to meet you as we speak." "What kind of alliance does this marriage provide?" Princess asked. Emperor Velthak smiled, showing sharp teeth. "The Zephyrians will share their advanced weapons technology with our empire. Their military strength, combined with our naval forces, will make us the dominant power in this sector." Jake felt sick. He had heard about the Zephyrian Confederacy. They were a brutal military society where women had no rights and were treated as property. Marriage to Prince Vextar would not be a partnership. It would be slavery. "I need time to consider this proposal," Princess Zarathal said carefully. "There is nothing to consider. The decision is made." Do not disappoint me, daughter. The Emperor ended the communication, leaving them in silence. Jake wanted to say something comforting, but what could he say? Princess Zarathal was trapped. By duty and tradition? Her father held absolute power, and refusing a direct order would have serious consequences. Die, he said finally. Princess Zarathal looked at him with surprise. You are sorry? Why? Because you deserve better than being sold to someone like Prince Vexstar. She stared at him for a long moment. No one has ever said that to me before? Then no one has been paying attention? 3 days later, Prince Vexstar arrived with great ceremony. His ship was massive and black, bristling with weapons. The prince himself was even worse than Jake had imagined. Tall and muscular, even by Zephyrian standards, he wore armor covered in spikes and carried weapons designed to intimidate rather than protect. When Prince Vexstar met Princess Zarathal, he did not bow or show any respect. Instead, he circled her like she was an animal he was considering purchasing. Acceptable, he announced to his entourage. The coloring is pleasing, and she appears healthy enough for breeding. Jake had to grip his weapon to keep from doing something stupid. Zarathal's skin flickered between blue and silver, but she maintained her composure. Your Highness, she said formally, welcome to our vessel. Prince Vexstar laughed. Our vessel? Soon everything you own will belong to me, female? You would do well to remember that. The prince's arrogance only got worse over the following days. He treated Princess Zarathal like she was already his property, making decisions about her schedule and dismissing her opinions. When she tried to participate in political discussions, he told her that females should not concern themselves with such matters. Jake watched it all with growing anger. The princess had been transformed from a brilliant diplomat into a silent decoration. Prince Vexstar made it clear that after their marriage, she would have no voice in any decisions. The worst. The moment came during a private dinner. Jake was standing guard when he heard Prince Vexstar speaking to his advisors. They thought they were alone, but Jake could hear every word. The female has too much spirit, Prince Vex_Tar said, but that can be corrected. A few months of proper discipline will teach her to obey. What about her human guardian? One advisor asked. He will be disposed of immediately after the ceremony. I will not have inferior species contaminating my household. Prince Vexstar's laugh was cruel. Perhaps I will make her watch. It will be an excellent lesson in the consequences of defiance. Jake felt cold rage fill his chest. He had known this. Marriage was wrong, but now he understood that it was not just wrong, it was evil. Prince Vexstar planned to break Princess Zarathal's spirit and probably kill Jake for the crime of treating her with respect. He found the princess in her quarters that evening, staring out at the stars again. She looked smaller somehow, as if Prince Vexstar's presence was crushing her spirit already. Your Highness, Jake said carefully, can I ask you something?
Of course.
If you could choose any life for yourself, what would it be? Princess Zarathal was quiet for a long time. I would want to help people, to use my education and abilities to solve problems and bring different species together. I would want to explore new worlds and learn about different cultures. She paused. And I would want to choose my own partner. Someone who saw me as an equal, not a prize to be won. Jake made his decision. He had been thinking about it for days, but hearing her answer convinced him. What he was about to propose was crazy and would probably end his career. But sometimes doing the right thing required taking risks. Your Highness, what if I told you there was another option? She turned to look at him, and Jake saw a spark of hope in her eyes. What kind of option? A way to avoid marrying Prince Vexstar while still fulfilling your duty to your people? That is impossible. My father has given his word. Jake took a deep breath. Not if you can prove that a better alliance exists, one that offers more benefits to your empire than weapons technology. Princess Zarathal's skin shifted to a brighter blue. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting that you marry me instead. No. Silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Princess Zarathal stared at him like he had lost his mind. You want me to marry you? She said slowly. Not because I am in love with you, Jake said quickly. Though I care about you more than I should, but because it would be a real partnership. An alliance between our species that could benefit everyone. Jake Morrison, Princess Zarathal, said, and her voice held something he had never heard before. That is either the bravest or the most foolish thing anyone has ever said to me. Probably both, Jake admitted. But it could work, if you are willing to try. Princess Zarathal looked out at the stars again, and Jake saw her skin begin to shift through colors he had never seen before. She was thinking, calculating, planning. Tell me your proposal, she said finally. Everything. Jake spent the entire night explaining his plan to Princess Zarathal. By morning, they had worked out every detail. It was risky and would require perfect timing, but it could work. The princess had found an old law in the Kethmori legal codes. That allowed her to challenge a marriage contract if she could prove a better alliance existed. The challenge must be made during the betrothal ceremony, she explained to Jake, as they prepared for the day. In front of all the witnesses, unless I speak the words, tradition requires that both proposals be evaluated fairly. And if your father refuses to listen? Princess Zarathal's skin shifted to a determined silver color. Then at least I will have tried to choose my own path. That is more than I have ever had before. The betrothal ceremony was scheduled for that evening. Jake put on his dress uniform and tried not to think about all the ways their plan could go wrong. They failed Prince. Vexstar would certainly have him killed. Worse, Princess Zarathal would be trapped in a marriage that would destroy everything good about her. The ceremony hall had been decorated with banners from both the Kethmori Empire and the Zephyrian Confederacy. Representatives from dozens of worlds had come to witness the alliance. Jake took his position behind Princess Zarathal's chair and tried to look like a simple guard rather than someone about to attempt a diplomatic revolution. Emperor Velthok presided over the ceremony via holographic projection. His image dominated the center of the hall, making his presence felt even across the vast distance of space. Prince Vexstar stood beside the princess, wearing his most intimidating armor and looking pleased with himself. We gather today, the emperor announced, to witness the joining of two great houses. This alliance will bring strength and prosperity to both our peoples. The ceremony followed ancient traditions. Representatives from each species spoke about the benefits of the marriage. The Zephyrian ambassador listed their military technologies and promised mutual defense agreements. The Kethmori nobles discussed trade routes and resource sharing. Jake listened to it all and felt sick. They were talking about Princess Zarathal like she was a piece of property being transferred from one owner to another. Her intelligence, her diplomatic skills, or her right to happiness. Finally, Emperor Velthok reached the crucial moment. According to the ancient laws of our people, this is the time for any challenges to be spoken. If any person knows of a reason why this alliance should not proceed, let them speak now or remain silent forever. The hall fell quiet. This was their moment. Princess Zarathal stood gracefully and stepped forward. Father, I invoke the right of alternative alliance. The silence that followed was deafening. Prince Vexstar's face twisted with rage, and several Zephyrian guards reached for their weapons. Emperor Velthok's projection flickered as if the signal was being disrupted by his anger. Daughter, the emperor said slowly, what are you doing? I am exercising my legal right to present an alternative proposal that better serves our empire. Princess Zarathal's voice carried clearly through the hall. I propose an alliance with the human species through marriage to Lieutenant Jake Morrison. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Prince Vexstar roared with fury and drew his sword. This is an insult. I will not be rejected for some inferior mammal. Ambassador Chen from Earth looked like he was about to faint. The other human representatives started whispering frantically among themselves. Jake stepped forward to stand beside Princess Zarathal, trying to project confidence he did not feel. Silence. Emperor Velthok's voice boomed through the hall. Daughter, explain yourself. What possible benefit could marriage to a human provide? Princess Zarathal had prepared for this question. She began to speak, and Jake marveled at her transformation. Gone was any trace of the lonely princess who had shared her fears with him. In her place stood a master diplomat presenting the case of her life. Father, the Zephyrian Alliance offers us weapons and military strength, but weapons alone do not build lasting empires. The Human Alliance offers something far more valuable: adaptability, innovation, and the ability to unite diverse species. In common cause, she gestured to Jake. Humans have proven their worth as partners rather than conquerors. In the past 50 years, every major breakthrough in interstellar cooperation has involved human participation. They do not seek to dominate other species. They seek to learn from them and work with them. Lies, Prince Vexstar snarled. Humans are weak and primitive, are they? Princess Zarathal turned to address the entire assembly. 3 weeks ago, it was human insight that uncovered the assassination plot against me. Not Kethmori intelligence or Zephyrian security. A human guard who understood behavior patterns and cultural differences well enough to spot threats that others missed. Jake felt every eye in the room focus on him. Ambassador Chen nodded slowly, remembering the incident from the dinner. Furthermore, the princess continued, humans have established successful diplomatic relationships with more species than any other civilization. They've mediated 17 major conflicts in the past decade. Their approach to problem-solving is unique and effective. Emperor Velthak leaned forward in his projection. These are impressive claims, daughter. But what concrete benefits does this alliance offer our empire? Princess Zarathal smiled, and Jake knew they had reached the heart of their argument. Access to human exploration technology that could open new trade routes. Participation in the Terran diplomatic corps, which would give us influence in dozens of systems. And most importantly, a model for cooperation that attracts other species rather than intimidating them. She paused for effect. The Zephyrian Alliance would make us stronger through fear. The Human Alliance would make us stronger through respect. Prince Vexstar had heard enough. I challenged this human to combat. If he wants to steal my bride, let him face me with honor. Jake felt his stomach drop. Straight combat, Prince Vexstar would destroy him in seconds. The Zephyrian prince was bigger, stronger, and had been trained to fight since childhood. But Jake had been thinking about this possibility. I accept your challenge, Jake said, ignoring the gasps from the human delegation. But I propose we test true strength, not just the ability to destroy. What do you mean? Prince Vexstar demanded. Jake looked at Princess Zarathal, who gave him an almost invisible nod of encouragement. I challenge you to solve a real problem, something that requires intelligence, creativity, and leadership. Let the assembly judge whose approach better serves the needs of civilized society. Emperor Velthak looked intrigued. Oh, what kind of problem? Jake had prepared for this moment. The Kepler Station crisis. The mining platform that has been abandoned. For 6 months, because no one can figure out how to extract the workers safely. It requires technical knowledge, diplomatic skill, and creative thinking. Whoever can present the better solution wins the right to marry Princess Zarathal. The Kepler Station problem was famous throughout the galaxy. A mining accident had trapped 300 workers from 7 different species in underground tunnels. The station's life support was failing. Conventional rescue attempts had failed because of the complex political situation between the species involved. Prince Star looked uncertain for the first time. This was not the kind of challenge he had expected. This is ridiculous. Combat determines strength, not puzzle solving. Are you afraid? Jake asked quietly. The question hit its mark. Prince Vexstar's pride would not allow him to back down from any challenge. Fine, but when I solve this problem faster than you, I will make you watch as I claim my bride. Emperor Velthak agreed to the contest and the assembly gathered around. Holographic displays showing the Kepler Station situation. Jake and Prince Vexstar were given access to all available information in 1 hour to develop their solutions. Jake worked frantically, using everything he had learned about different species and their cultures. Princess Zarathal watched from across the room, unable to help but offering silent support with her presence. When the hour ended, Prince Vexstar presented his solution first. It was typically Zephyrion, a massive military operation, using overwhelming force to blast through the collapsed tunnels and extract the survivors. It was straightforward and might work, but it would definitely result in casualties and would require months of preparation. Then it was Jake's turn. He stood before the assembly and began to explain his approach. Instead of focusing on the physical barriers, he had studied the political problems between the trapped species. His solution involved using cultural mediators to convince the different groups to work together, creating a coordinated escape effort from the inside, while rescue teams provided support from specific entry points. More importantly, Jake's plan addressed the root causes of the conflict that had led to the accident in the first place. It would not only save the trapped workers, but prevent similar disasters in the future. The assembly listened in growing amazement as Jake outlined how human diplomatic techniques could turn a rescue operation into a model for interspecies cooperation. When he finished, Emperor Velthok was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. The human solution is elegant and comprehensive. More than that, it demonstrates the kind of thinking that builds lasting alliances.